All right, so my name is Gerald Jones with FERS Retirement. I manage investments for federal employees and do their financial planning as well. Now, I want to talk to you about mass layoffs through the federal government. Last week, or a week or two ago, I want to say June 28th, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that gives the administration the go ahead for mass layoffs, but not necessarily. It's actually a little bit more nuanced than that. And that's what I'm going to cover. So we're going to cover that. I'm going to talk to you about the next I'm going to talk to you about the next agency that's on the clock for mass layoffs. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to go over what you need to do. So let's go right into it. Let's take a look here. Let's start with this here. And okay, boom. Now, the Chevron doctrine. Last week, the Supreme Court made a decision 6-3. Perfect. All right, so Chevron doctrine. Let's start from the top. There was a court case, Loper Bright versus Raimondo, which removes the Chevron doctrine. All right, so let's start here. All right, so we're going to go through this. Okay, now this is as of about a week or so ago. This is the Supreme Court's decision. I'm going to break this down for you so you have better insight. So yes, the Supreme Court's decision in Loper Bright versus Enterprises versus Raimondo effectively removed the Chevron doctrine from administrative law. This means that courts will no longer defer. This means that courts will no longer defer to federal agencies' interpretations of ambiguous statutes and will instead exercise their own independent judgment in determining the meaning of statutes according to the Supreme Court. Okay? So, what this means is, in the past, like as early as like this year, and in the past previous to that, when an administration will want to do layoffs or whenever there was a dispute, the Supreme Court would have to rely on how that said federal agency interpreted the law, which gives that said federal agency power. Okay? Gives that federal agency power to say, hey, the law means this. It doesn't mean that. Okay? So, now, let's continue. The doctrine established, the Chevron doctrine established in 1984, Chevron USA Inc. versus Natural Resources Defense Council Inc. instructed courts to defer to an agency's reasonable interpretation of an ambiguous statute that the agency is tasked with administrating. Ambiguous statute. To me, that sounds like one party from. So this is an article. Sounds like definitely what party they're in favor with, which is fine. I get that. All right. So, why the Supreme Court overturned the Chevron doctrine? All right. So, what they found was in the Loper Bright. I don't know why that's such a weird name. In the Loper Bright, the Supreme Court found that the Chevron doctrine was incompatible with the Administrative Procedure Act. Let's call that the APA, which requires courts to decide all relevant questions of law. The Supreme Court said, no, we're the judges, we're the court, we make the decision on how the law is interpreted, not federal agencies. We make that decision. What does that do for federal agencies? It reduces their power. It reduces their power, okay? Because ideally, the Supreme Court is supposed to be independent. Ideally, trust me, I get what you're saying. Ideally, it's supposed to be independent, okay? Now, what does this mean for agencies? Well, this decision significantly alters the landscape of administrative law by reducing the authority of federal agencies interpreting statutes. It means that courts will now be more likely to scrutinize interpretations and potentially overturn them if they disagree with agencies' reading of the law. So, here's what's coming. It's a coming. Matter of fact, after I go through the Chevron doctrine, I'm going to show you what agency is now on the clock. Not only are they going to, the new administration going to proceed with layoffs within the federal government, okay, they're going to go back to look to overturn the current laws that are in effect. Now, what happens is that when they go through this process, there's going to be a legal battle. During the legal battle is when they're going to say, is when the Supreme Court is going to look at this and make an independent decision themselves to decide if how this law should be read, versus in the past where the federal agency can decide how the law could be read. Okay, so what happens next? The Looper decision is likely to have far-reaching consequences, potentially leading to more litigation and greater role for courts in shaping the interpretation and application of federal regulations, according to experts at the NRDC. Okay, so that's what's coming down the pipe. It's coming. All right, so let's take a look at this here. Okay, yeah, that's Sotomayor, if I'm saying her name right. She's out of California, the Bay Area. I believe she's the federal George in up north. She is not in agreement with this at all. Actually, she's the one that put brakes to this and put a pause on everything a few months back. Okay, the camera's a little blurry. All right, so that's what we have coming down the pipe. Now, here's the thing. There's been some cases in history where this has happened, where essentially uh, federal agencies had their hands or their wrists twisted or their hands twisted, where they had to do cuts and layoffs even though they didn't want to. The last time was back in 2013. Congress budget. The Congress cut the budget and they forced massive layoffs back in 2013, and then another time was Janus versus the American Federation um, of State, City, Municipal Employees. Okay, so both cases where federal agencies were forced to do layoffs on their own. So it has happened in the past. Two other things I want to bring up: your FERS pension and your TSP, Thrift Savings Plan, will not be affected at all during this mass layoff process. Okay. But there is a ripple effect. The ripple effect is, I can't guarantee anything, but typically based on history, there aren't going to be any promotions. So during a mass layoff period, the chances of employees getting promoted typically goes out the door. So you're going to have fewer promotions, the buyouts, early buyouts and early retirement, or voluntary buyouts and early retirement. Those pretty much are going to be reduced, just about gone. That is really, in my opinion, pretty important, because depending on how things shape out, we're going to find out who made the best decision and who did not. So as you remember earlier this year, you had an employee buyout where you can get 8 months of your salary, et cetera, et cetera. And a small few took that option. The majority did not. Depending on how these federal layoffs go, we're going to kind of see who made the best decision and who did not. So if we get a mass amount of federal layoffs within multiple agencies and you took the buyout, well, then you won. If your agency doesn't have a layoff and you took the buyout and maybe you wanted to stay, well, maybe you think that wasn't the best decision. Only time is going to tell to see how this is really all going to pan out. But the fact that there most likely will not be any voluntary early retirements or any buyouts, I think it's pretty interesting here. It's interesting because they were given out earlier. So, few things that you can do right now. Now, first off, let me say this. As far as the big, beautiful bill, in my opinion, this country is going to soar. Okay. Taxes have been reduced, which puts more money into the American people. There are three main things that I don't agree with the administration as far as from a financial planning aspect. There's some other things I don't agree with, but just from a financial planning aspect. One, okay, so there's another thing too, so I'll bring that up. Undocumented immigrants. I don't agree with how harshly they're getting forced out of the U.S. Okay. Two, Fed Chair Jerome Powell. I don't agree that he should be forced out as Fed Chair. I do like the fact that he waits and that he's late. And he does that because he waits on the data. And I like that. Now, it could be that I'm just attached to Fed Chair Jerome Powell because I've been watching him and following him for so long, and I'm kind of used to his process. And yeah, I enjoy listening to him speak and all those different things. But I don't agree with him being forced out. If he is forced out, and when we do get another Fed Chair in office, oh, the market's really going to run because they're going to drop interest rates like that. And the last thing is, oh yeah, how harshly they are looking to cut federal employees. Now, I say that to say this, okay? Now that, those are my three main things. There's something else, but I'll leave that off the shelf. I won't even bring that up. If you're facing federal layoffs from your agency, one, this is a traumatic event. Okay. This is a traumatic event. However, once you pull yourself together, you want to make sure that you're in position to accumulate resources, assets for your family so you are safe. Assets in the form of Bitcoin, real estate, and stocks. Okay. So, yes, this is traumatic. Yes, you want to pull yourself together. But once you get yourself together over the next 4 to 10 years, this country should take off. because they are dropping taxes and they're putting more money into the hands of the American people. And although this is an unfortunate event for federal employees, you don't want to let this event cause you to lose years and years behind because you didn't plan properly. Okay, once you've been able to emotionally heal. So, first thing, one, you want to make sure that you're totally out of consumer debt. Out of consumer debt. Student loans, car loans, yes, your car note. Student loans, car loans, credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Saks Fifth, Home Depot. You want to make sure you have all of those things paid off. Okay. You do not want to be the person while everyone else is investing in assets, you're paying the credit card companies. You don't want to be that person because you're going to miss the boat. Okay. Don't want you to miss the boat. So you want to build. So one, we want to make sure all of our debts are totally taken care of. Those are all paid off. Have our emergency fund built at least 3 to 6 months or 7 months, depending on what's a good relative number for you. It just depends on um, your tolerance. I have some of my retirees; they have over 6 figures saved in the bank. They're retired, so they feel comfortable with that cushion. Some of my households where they're still in their 30s or in their 40s, they have 10, 15, $20,000 saved for an emergency fund because they're still working. So the bottom line is, however much money you need saved in the bank in case there's an issue or an emergency, you need to have that money saved in the bank. Okay, did I say that twice? However much money you feel like you need to have saved in the event of an emergency, you need to make sure you have that saved in the bank. It's going to vary for every household, but whatever that number is, have that parked there. Okay. And then after that, I'm not going to go into the long-term investing, but the point is that that's going to help you um, brace the impact of being laid off. All right. Now, if for your TSP, okay, now this is just general advice. If you need to take cash out of your TSP, you're facing a layoff, and you have $100,000 in your TSP, for example, you need to take out $20,000. Typically, it's going to be best for you to put 20% into the G fund, so it's sitting there in cash. Ideally, you want to have the rest maybe invested in the C fund since the economy is taking off and it's continuing to grow. Excuse me. But you want to have that $20,000 sitting in the G fund. Okay. So it's sitting there waiting for you. Okay. You don't want to have that invested aggressively because you don't want to have to sell out on your shares at the wrong time. Market could be coming down and you have to sell out on your shares. And yes, I'm not accounting for taxes or a penalty if you're under 59 and a half, things like that. Okay. So yes, if you need to take money out because you're getting ready for a layoff, you want to make sure you adjust your allocations. Now, if you're not worried about that, I would just continue, keep it in the C fund. That's what I use. I use the C fund or I use the G fund. I really don't go into the S or the I. I really focus on the C fund. So that's what you're going to hear me talk about the majority of the time. But essentially, you just let your account go. Let it just run and run with the market. You can leave your TSP with a thrift savings plan. You can transfer it to your own IRA. What I think is the best thing to do is transfer it to your own 401k for your new employer. Okay, so you can, once you get to your new employer, let's say you have $100,000, your TSP, you transfer that over to your new employer. Now you can continue adding on to it. Typically, your account's going to grow faster than just letting it sit idle. Okay. Your resume. Make sure your resume is up to date. Make sure your resume is on LinkedIn. Okay. Two main fields I would be looking at. One is cybersecurity. The other one is AI, artificial intelligence. Okay, so you definitely want to make sure you're taking some additional courses on that online, Udemy, things like that, so you can continue to increase your skill set. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Meta, he is stealing employees from NVIDIA, Apple, and paying them 8-figure salaries to run his AI at Meta. I'm not saying you're going to get 8-figure salary. If you do get an 8-figure salary, kudos, congratulations to you. But the point is that AI is a big industry, and there's going to be a lot of money going into that industry. Cybersecurity, everything is online. That's a big deal as well. So I hope this was helpful. And if you know someone that needs to hear this information, go ahead and spread this and share this with them. Other than that, have a good evening.